Mm. Right. Mm. Mm. Ew. No. Hmm.
What else? Huh? What are you doing? Whoa. You can't see me, can you? No.
No.
Okay, hold on a minute. My dog's running around, bumping into my green screen. Uh, how do I do? Oh, it's OBS. Okay, so that was an enlightening conversation.
Okay. You doing okay?
Yeah. It was with Emil, right? He's always trying to think about two steps ahead. So he was talking to me about that. So
Okay. I trust that it was productive and fruitful.
it was, well, yeah, it is. We're gonna, this is gonna cause a little bit of a ripple effect, but we're gonna start differentiating between those like yourself who have done their 20 and done everything, and those that haven't. And that will cause some consternation, right?
Well, Chris, that is the right thing to do. So I don't know if Emil told you I texted him this morning
He did.
regarding.
He told me you guys talked. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just, I just recommended an informational session, because of the time commitment and what all's involved, so we could just be informed. And he mentioned the differentiating, and all I said was, agreed. I mean, I don't think that causes consternation, Chris. I think it may it makes
Well,
total sense because that was articulated early regarding the expectation. So I would think that would be understandable.
well, to you it seems perfectly logical, right? But if you make it that it is, suddenly you're not eligible for to do the training in Gary, you're not included on, you're not, you don't have the same options that everybody else does. Um, you feel somewhat differentiated. It's going to cause a little bit of I mean, it's going to cause some people to feel a little bit like, what the heck, right? So,
It's like welcome to adulthood and life.
yeah, exactly.
Okay,
They,
so let's move on from that because those folks will just, have to move forward. So, I do have some questions, Chris. So you sent me a PDF, so I'm assuming you will have the actual slides that, and I can just say next slide, then we won't be
yeah,
using PDF that you sent me.
yeah.
Okay, I actually had some questions as I was going through it. And so there are several in the ethics and bias, there are several exercises. Do you mind pulling up the slide so we can talk about it and hopefully this
No,
will.
I was just doing that. I just got it up, so let's
Okay.
get it up
That way
and then
we can go
we'll.
straight to.
Yeah, there's a lot of slides in there. And I was gonna try, I evidently didn't say it in email, but I want you to choose which ones you want, which
Okay.
ones. Let me stop before we go any further. Let me stop this. Okay. Okay. Oh, I've stopped the wrong thing. Hold on. Is it recording?
Yes. Well, when I dialed in, it was. I don't know if you stopped it. I don't see the. Oh, yes, it's still recording. It started when I dialed in like around 9:20.
Okay. Then I'll need to go edit that then. Okay. We'll just leave it go and then I'll go back and edit it. Okay.
Okay, so let's just start from from the top, Chris. Okay, so when there's the first slide, which is really three, and then will you introduce me?
Yes.
You're gonna
Yes.
start.
I will introduce you and then ask you to explain um to just tell about yourself, what you do, right? And talk about your business and the fact that you're a Six Sigma expert,
Mm,
and give that little bit of um give a little bit of enough information that they know you know what you're talking about. Okay.
okay, 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 we'll do. Now, if you go to slide three, okay, then I'll pick up at slide three. And then before we go into slide four, I was going to ask them, what do you think bias is? Because again, I just don't know what these cultural differences, what it makes sense for me to ask them or not ask them. So I was going to ask them before we go to the what is bias slide. So I'll ask them, and here's what I was going to do, Chris, since you or somebody else said they're maybe not engaging. Before I really get into the questions, I was going to recommend to them that if they want to direct message, I was going to say you, because it might be hard for me to do the slides and look for their messages coming through. But if they could unmute themselves, they can write in the chat, or maybe they could direct message you, and then that way you can read the question out loud without saying their name, since
Yep.
it sounds like there's an issue with elders in the room and maybe they won't engage, but if maybe they know they can send it privately to you and you won't say their name, maybe that'll help.
So your question was, what does bias mean to you?
Yes. What does bias mean to you? And I just want to do that before and again, just looking for opportunities to engage, and who knows what they
Oh,
might say from their perspective.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. What else you want to do?
Okay,
The
but are
next,
you okay with that? Where I will tell them if you want to confidentially send a private message to Chris with a question for us to read out loud and we will not say your name. Are you okay with that? Because wanted to provide an anonymous avenue if they have an elder in the presence that is stifling their comfort with communicating. Can I say that?
yeah. So where do you want to say that? Do you want to say it right here? Do you want to say it on this
Um,
slide? Do you want me to
No,
say it?
I am going to say it before the question. So when we talk about, okay, this is ethics and bias and here's what this is about. And
Hmm.
then before I go to the question, I'm going to say, hey, this is intended to be interactive. That's how you get your best learning is when you're engaging. And there are three different ways you can engage. I'll say you can unmute yourself and talk, or you can write in the chat, or you can send something direct chat to Chris. he'll read it and will not say your name, or you can use an emoji. But if I say you can direct chat Chris, he won't read
Yeah.
your name. I just wanted to make sure that was okay with you. And you need to be looking out for people to message just you and don't say their name.
Okay. I can do
Okay,
that. Yeah.
okay,
You need to not ask me if I think it's okay. This is your session. You've done as many or more than I have. I mean, I've
okay,
done thousands of hours of training virtually, but this is your session. You know what you're doing.
okay.
You know what you're comfortable with. Just tell me what you want me to do to help you. Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. So let's go down to the examples because, Chris, there were so many examples, and frankly, when I do the classes, we don't do all the examples because after a while, you're kind of getting the point. Let's see. Yeah, keep going, keep going. It's where the brain is. Okay. So right here, I want to understand what your intent was because we have three examples here. And even though the questions are at the bottom, I don't think this is the place to ask the questions. It's really an introduction of three scenarios that we will discuss. Okay, so I do not plan to do the discussion questions here because with your next slide, and I'm actually going to skip the yeah. Oh, yeah, I like this. You were just doing what I say.
It's your show. I'm not kidding. It's your show.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this
I
slide
mean,
is just introductory to then the next three slides that go into detail. So introductory, and then we go to the next slide. Then it gets into the details of Amazon. Oh no, I think the next slide is the criminal. I think the next one is the criminal one. Delete this slide because it feels out of place, if you don't mind, or hide. Okay. So then the next one, that's when we get into the details of the three examples. Now, Chris, when you do it, because there's three examples, the facial recognition and then the healthcare, and then there's another one. In the past, have you done the full discussion questions, all three examples?
no,
Okay. Because
I
I
don't
just
think
thought it
I
was a
think
lot.
we skipped. I think we just did. I think I kind of blew through these and I thought I talked about facial recognition because I thought that was the most interesting for the audience, right? About, because I mean, I've read stuff where it's even you can't put your hand, the early versions of the, where you stick your hands under the water and it comes out, the
Mm-hmm.
water comes out at the faucet, that
Mm-hmm.
even that they had problems with, you know, people of darker skins because it didn't recognize it because it was
Oh,
programmed for
right,
Caucasian, right?
right.
So I
Okay.
went through that one, but which one do you want to? You can go through all three, or you can. How would you like to do that?
Maybe the first two, and I really think that will suffice. Now, and here's how you did it, Chris. I do recall you did do all three. You spent time on the page where all three examples were mentioned, but then you had us do breakout rooms. And then each group took one of these, and then they came back and talked about it. That's how you did it with us.
You
Because
want to
you
do that
have a
today?
breakout, I think you have a breakout room towards the end,
Hmm.
but this could be a good opportunity, again, if we want to maximize engagement to get them in talking, um, to have, because really each example is really packed. I mean, each example makes really, you could spend, 10, 12 minutes on each example, and it's a good discussion. What do you think about when we're on what do you think about having those three? examples are actually breakout. And now what I have done is I asked them to take a picture of it. Well, they might not be able to take a picture of it.
Sometimes
Uh,
both.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh, I know we need to wrap it up. But anyway, I think it's a good opportunity for a breakout. What do you think?
Yeah.
Oh, there I go, asking for your opinion again.
So in your breakout rooms, pick one of the examples
Mm-hmm.
and have a and go over the breakout question, go over the discussion questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. It should be easier because they should have the slides ahead of time. So they
Okay.
don't need to take a picture. That's why
Okay.
um, that's
Send
why
it.
I did that. And so just real quick, we got 4 minutes left. I'll go come.
Okay, that's fine. And this
come
was the and really, Chris, all these examples was the main question I had because it was too dense
yeah.
with too many examples, and I didn't want the criminal one, and I just wanted those three early on to be a breakout.
So do you want to skip? We've already kind of talked about this one, right?
Yeah, agree. Hide.
So I'll hide it. I'll
Yeah.
hide this next one, right? Because we got three
Yeah.
examples. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Now this one I thought might be decent to keep. This may be
Okay.
something you added. I don't remember that one.
Okay. What
Yeah.
about this one?
I again, I just think if we allow them, 12 minutes or so in the breakout, we just don't need another one.
Okay,
Now,
got it.
now let me specify if for timing, right? Because you never know the cadence and the timing. You want to keep that because maybe we went too fast. See, and then yeah.
I think you're good. I mean, we're covering it up here,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're covering it up here. We're giving them three options. We're doing a breakout session. They're going to go into the breakout session. They're going to have a conversation. We're going to bring them back. And I think we could wrap it up, kind of do your one slide
Yeah.
here. Um, do this slide
And then
because it's
wrap it.
applicable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I would blow away the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
I would
Okay.
skip the rest
I
of it.
agree. I agree.
Okay.
And then I think we really get towards the end and then we go to copyright. With copyright, I'm only going to cover the first slide because I did look at the second slide. And while it defines the need to protect intellectual property, the second bubble got into something that may be US based. So even the second slide was not applicable. So just the first slide of the copyright.
So let me
Oh,
jump in here. So in the breakout, so what I was going to do was let you what I thought, and I'm going to be interested to see how you react to
okay.
this. I thought you could introduce the concept
Yeah.
of copyright,
Mm-hmm.
and then we go have them do in their breakout rooms. They've also got the AI ethics and the AI copyright worksheets,
I saw that.
and let them go and let them discover copyright.
Yes.
Because in copyright,
Yes.
I also created that InnoPower.ai Liberian copyright and AI law expert tool,
And I
right?
saw that. Yeah.
So that way, and then we bring everybody back. That gives us a variable at the
Yes.
end. So if we're pushed, they can start working on it, and then we can ask them to complete it and send it to us. If we're not pushed, then they can just do it, and you can bring them back, and we can have a conversation.
Okay. And Chris, since to tell you the truth, I was focused on the ethics and bias slides. I glanced at what you had in the InnoPower, glanced at the worksheet. So what I prefer after I introduce the topic of copyright, that you just go ahead and lead us into
The
give
breakout.
the introductory information to lead into the breakout and give
Yeah.
the instructions for that.
But I want you to talk about copyright. You know about it too,
I
right?
will at the beginning. I
Okay.
will.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure you're just not going to say Chris is going to take over copyright because I want you to
Okay.
be, I want you to have this, right? So,
Okay. We got
okay.
it. I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay. Cool. And I'll hide the rest of these.
Okay.
And I'm going to go off camera for 2 seconds. I have to go finish preparing to be on camera here.
Okay.
I'll be down there a little bit. No, get out of that. Get out of that. Get out of my trash can. What are you doing? Did I leave my mic on?
Yes.
Yes, and it's funny.
My dog, my dog is a little cocker spaniel, and she has gotten she and I have gotten in the habit of when I eat a banana, I end up feeding her a little bit of it. And I didn't think, and I threw my banana peel in my trash can. So I ran out real quick to fill up my water and my cup. And when I come back, she's tipped the trash can over and she's trying to eat the peel. I'm like, ugh, shouldn't be
Like
doing that,
banana
girl.
meat, banana peel, same thing. They're both good.
That's right. Although I would argue with you that a banana peel is not nearly as good as a banana itself.
At least we think.
Yeah. Is anybody here yet?
Yeah. We've got about 12,
I'm here.
10.
And Chris, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So you know it. I just arrived at Tottenham University. I've been out. They are
Uh-huh.
they are in a room, so there are more people participating than you would tell. They are in a one room because of internet connectivity and so forth, and
Okay.
so they are participating. and I will try to get that number from Dr. Guata.
Okay.
And I hope they are filling up their attendance sheet.
Okay. We've got a few folks. I was going through looking at the homework, and I had a few people respond who were not on the sheet that I had. So I'm guessing that's part of that.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about that too, so they can go ahead and complete the registration for record
Yeah.
keeping. Hello, Joel. How you doing?
Hi there. Good morning. And Chris, since the slides are showing, we might want to go to the top.
Oh, I hadn't done the
So
slideshow
we
yet.
go to crystal ball.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. And we can see your presenter view though.
Da, 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 da. So at least you can see that I don't have any slide notes, right? So I'm not reading a script. I don't think I could read a script if I had to. Okay, so there we go. So is that better? Do you just see the slide?
Yes, it's all
Okay.
good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's move that. We're going to give everybody another minute or two, and then we'll jump in full force. Man, the computer is slow today. All right, let's get going. And then, yeah, let's go ahead and get going. And then I can work on getting my screens arranged while we're moving forward. Let's approve that. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Good afternoon. Happy Saturday to everybody. What we're going to talk about today is one of my favorite topics. I know I've got a lot of favorites, but one of my favorite topics today is we're going to talk about ethics and AI and bias as well. And then we're also going to talk about copyright. And what's interesting to me about ethics and bias is that for me personally, I've always kind of been aware of there being bias in society and bias online, but I've never really noticed it until I've never really understood the magnitude of it until I started using AI. And Joy Mason is going to walk us through the bias and the ethics part of today's presentation. And the reason it's interesting to me is because it is something that we need to get eradicated from AI, right? We shouldn't have bias. It shouldn't have cultural stereotypes. And I'll use myself as an example. My son-in-law created a book using AI for my granddaughter for her first birthday, which was a couple years ago. And in the book, he's from Scotland. My daughter lives in Scotland, and he is Scottish. He generated this book and he used AI to do the pictures. He used Midjourney. And when he did it, he said, an American couple. And it came up and it put a cowboy hat on me with overalls and had my wife with an apron and an apple pie. And we were standing in front of a mountain. Well, A, we live in Indiana. It's flatter than anything here. B, I haven't worn a cowboy hat since I was 6 years old, right? And C, I thought it was somewhat biased that you say an American wife, she's standing there holding an apple pie with her apron on. And, I'm using that example because there are a lot worse examples out there. There's a lot of examples where that it shows its bias. And so it's something we as AI enthusiasts, AI specialists, we need to be aware of, right? And we need to help eradicate that. We need to help people understand that it exists, and you need to make sure that you're accounting for it. We also need to understand the fact that there are multiple cultures in the world, and even multiple cultures within a country, right? So we need to be sensitive to that because we want to be inclusive. We want to make sure that we're not putting somebody in a bad spot. And so I'm going to have today, Joy's going to pretty much be running the show. I'm going to be behind the scenes. I'm going to be the man behind the curtain, and I'm going to be supporting her as she goes forward, but she's going to be running the presentations and coordinating everything. Joy has a lot of experience, and I would love to be able to introduce her better, but I think she can do a better job of introducing herself than I can. So, Joy, I'll turn it over to you, and you can introduce yourself, and we can go from there.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And I just want to say before I introduce myself, I was really looking forward to this opportunity to be with all of you. It's really an honor to be able to support your learning. And so I am very hopeful and optimistic that you will get a lot out of this session. So just very quickly, a little bit about myself. Most of my career has been in a regulated industry, the pharmaceutical industry, with 30 years of experience. But over the past 8 years, I am the owner and founder of my own training and consulting business, Optimus Business Solutions. And basically, we're about operational excellence. We work with small businesses, small businesses, and nonprofits to really help them optimize their results, their impact, and also their speed. When you're serving clients and customers, you need to do it with some level of speed because they're waiting on services from you. So basically, it's operational excellence, effectiveness, and efficiency. And then I also have a nonprofit, which is called the Six Sigma Indie. And we actually, well, let me back up. Six Sigma, if you haven't heard of it, it's about expert problem solving. So there, as you know, there are a ton of problems everywhere, right? In the workplace, in our communities, there are problems that are just waiting for people to answer them with effective, sustainable solutions. So with Six Sigma, it's actually a global certification that is available. It's available all around the world. And I provide training and certification opportunities primarily for people who look like us, who don't get the opportunity for that training and certification. And for their certification, they get trained, but also they work on projects in communities, in the workplaces, in nonprofits where they can actually apply qualitative and quantitative analysis, root cause analysis, in order to solve tough problems, especially when it comes to equity, disproportionality, and issues that really result in inequities within our communities. So I think that is enough about me. I really enjoy what I do. So if anybody wants to know more, be more than happy in another setting to share more, especially about Six Sigma. I really enjoy it. So let's get on with the show and talk about ethics and bias, and then eventually we'll talk about copyright too. So before we go to the slide, though, I want to just share with everyone that we all have biases. We are human. And even with AI, there are humans behind AI. So, as we're talking about this topic, I know it's easy to point to others and really think about how other people and how AI is this other thing that includes a bias. But I want us to think very inclusively that we are human too. And so as we talk about bias, it's not only the system, it's the humans and it's us. And so if it's us, then that means we have the power to bring solutions to these bias and ethics issues that we'll be discussing today. You have power, you have self-agency, and you have ability to influence the bias that we might see in AI. So that's what we'll talk about today. Okay, so next slide. Okay, next slide.
Too quick. Sorry.
No, that's it.
There you go.
Okay, so again, we'll be talking about bias, and I want to share something with you because I have taught this class a couple of times now. And so I have gone over this material several times with my students. And what I share with them, I share Chris's passion about this topic. We want you to be excellent prompt engineers. And so far, I believe you have learned different frameworks, whether it's Clear and Spark and, different principles of effective prompting. But just like Chris said, this ethics and bias, I would say, is just as important for you to learn because we want you to use AI in a responsible way. And as you hear more things in the news, and we'll be very transparent with all of you, there will be bad things in the news about AI, but there are great things about AI. And we don't want you to avoid AI because you hear bad things. So, because anything can be abused, the internet, there's the dark web, that can be abused. So, with AI, you're going to hear some things that are not good. And it's anywhere from, just terrible abuse of the system to there could be very subtle biases. And so we're going to talk about that, but just I want to emphasize prompt engineering, really important. And we want you to be great prompt engineers, but we want you to be responsible users of the platform. So that's another reason why this is so important to talk about the ethics and bias of AI. Okay, so with the next slide, we want to ask you before we just kind of jump into this topic, because I may have a different definition than you. What would be your definition of bias, or what does bias mean to you? And let me just share with you as you're thinking about your response, because we do want this to be very interactive. So we have thought about some different ways that you can respond. So you can choose a response that is very comfortable for you. So you can take yourself off mute at any time. I'm very comfortable at any time, whether there's a question or not, that you can take yourself off mute and you can just share, or you can write something in the chat. And so I will try. It's hard to talk, do slides, and watch the chat. So Chris will keep an eye on the chat. And then also, if you're not comfortable, you can send a direct message to Chris. And then Chris will read your question or your response without reading your name. If you prefer to be anonymous, and you can do that by clicking on his name. Asman, do you have a comment?
I'm just linking the program. Maybe I will get the comment later on.
Okay, just want to make sure you're okay there. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So, yes, if you have a comment, you can put it in the chat. You can do a private message to Chris, and he can read it out loud without you saying anything. Or if you don't want to use any words, please, by all means, use the little smiley face and emojis, and you can just do a thumbs up or thumbs down or the heart or star or whatever represents how you're feeling about the question. Okay. The main thing is that we want you to engage and interact because that's the best way you're going to get the learning, as opposed to just being a listener, and that's great, but please interact. So back to the question. What does bias mean to you? What does bias mean to you?
Joy, let me say to the team that we have a lot of a mixture of people who are participating in this class. I'm the president of the university. I'm taking the class. I want you
Great.
to kind of be free to interact. Silence will not do it. We have to talk. So whether you're a student or you're a faculty member or your staff, please be free to talk. I am learning just as you are learning. So please be free to interact. I just want to throw that out because the class have been very, very solid.
Yes, thank you so much for adding that. Okay, we have a response from Francis.
Yes, for me, bias, being biased is jumping into conclusion without about someone or something without finding the facts
Yeah,
about
so
what you base a decision on.
I like that, Francis. It's jumping. And when you use the word jumping, that means you're moving too quickly without knowing more information and making assumptions. I think you're spot on. Thank you. Does anyone else want to share? Maybe you
I
would
think for me,
go ahead.
for me, I think bias is just contradicting a person without knowing the person. I mean, as the president, I experience that all the time. People contradict you, not knowing your expectation or what you can do, and just cut you short, and saying that you know good, and say a nasty thing about you.
Yes, Alu. So thank you for that response. And I like how you said they don't know. It's like they're saying something, they're making decisions, they're making a judgment, and they simply do not know. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? I thought I heard someone else wanted to respond. Okay. Osmond?
Yeah, bias to me is being unfair in a given situations. Like for example, you are in a class teaching, you give more grace to the female student than the male student, just simply because you are a female professor.
Unfair. So Osmond, out of so we've had a couple different responses, and they are all on point. But I think this is the first time that we've used the word unfair. And I'm glad you mentioned that because, again, going back to what Francis said, when you jump, or when Alu said, when you cut short and assume and you don't know, what that can contribute to is what you said, Osman, and that is making decisions that are unfair because you jumped, you didn't know, you cut short, and you assumed. So I like that. Thank you. Edward, had you taken your mic off? I thought I saw. Was that you?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yes.
want to give my point for concerning the bias. When we talk about bias, you are talking about being fair, being unfair. Like you make decision or without knowing the full, let's say, the full case, like without or taking into consideration the both parties that are involved. Yeah, so you make decision based on small information. Yeah, that is being biased, not being
Yes,
unfair in
thank
your
you.
decision.
Mhm.
So
Thank
I
you,
think
Edward. And I'm going to, and out of your response, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you short. But out of your response, a key word that I pulled out was decision making. So really, when you take everybody's response and kind of pull it together, it's just all these perspectives are applicable, and they prove kind of different points around the word bias. And Edward, when you said decision, it's like, again, what kind of decisions are being made if they're unfair, they're cutting people short, we're jumping to conclusions, making assumptions, we don't know the full person, then that means the decisions that are being made are unfair. Yes, I love that. So we've got some comments in the chat. The world is biased with negative stereotypes and perceptions about Liberia. Yeah. So to your point, there are regional biases. There are biases about countries, and depending on where you live, People make assumptions without knowing. Another comment, personal bias. When someone's background, beliefs, or emotions influence how they see people or situations, yeah, personal. And then another comment, bias means having a tendency, preference, or prejudice for or against something, someone, or group in a way that is often unfair. This word unfair keeps coming up. Unfair, because again, you don't know. Bias is not inherently positive or negative, but using insights from our own lived experiences and applying that to everything we do, decisions we make, and consequences can be fair and or unfair. So I think what that comment is posing is that maybe it could go either way. It could maybe be a positive bias. There's actually something out there, I think it's called optimism bias, where you, or like a halo effect, where a person that you look at, you're always thinking the best of them. It's like even when they do something wrong, you have a bias. That halo means a positive bias where they can do no wrong even when they do wrong. So actually, bias can be very positive or negative. It can go either way. Bias is simply making, bias is simply making unfair decisions that are usually derived from prejudice. And that is true too. So this is really good dialogue. And thank you so much for your comments, whether they were in the chat or the discussion. And that's a good lead in, Chris, to the next slide.
Sorry, I was responding to the chat.
Okay, that's fine.
There you go.
Okay. So here, and again, I do want to share, even though we have a definition here on the slides, all of your perspectives were relevant and applicable. So again, don't think because we have a definition here that anything was wrong with what you shared. A bias refers to unintended discrimination in automated systems. So this is within the context of systems, okay, within the context of automated systems like AI. But to our point that we were discussing, it mirrors what is already there in society, right? So the AI platforms didn't make this up on their own. You know, it's not like the computer, like your phone or your tablet, it created bias all by itself. No, it's humans behind all of these platforms. And we have bias in our society and humans, so it gets reflected in the systems. And then I believe it was Edward who talked about decisions. So here you have these biases, and then unfortunately or fortunately, then critical decisions get made based on those biases. And those decisions could be in really critical areas like healthcare diagnosis, loan approvals, the hiring process. Those are very serious decisions with significant impact. And so those biases, that's why it's important as we talk about AI platforms that we need to recognize and illuminate this issue around bias. So again, it's a growing concern and you may hear more in the news. And so that's why by the time that you're done with all these classes and you complete, as you hear things about the platforms, you will be informed around responsible use. And Fiman says, when you only notice or accept information that supports what you already believe. And actually, Fiman, you hit on something that it has a name to it. It's called confirmation bias, right? Confirmation bias. And I would have to admit, I probably do some of that myself, just because I'm human, right? Okay, next slide. So we're going to talk about, and I think Tracy mentioned this, it can be positive or negative.
Joy?
Yes, yes. Was that Alu? Alu?
It was.
Yes, we can hear you. Are you have a comment?
let's carry on, and when he
Okay.
comes back and gets a good signal, we'll
Okay.
come
Okay.
back to it.
So as Tracy mentioned, she said it can be positive or negative. And that is true. Again, confirmation bias, is that positive or negative? I don't know. It depends, probably is the word or phrase that should be used on a lot of this. So we're going to talk about positive and the negative. Positive potential of AI. Reduce human biases. So we talked about in AI, you will probably invariably see some biases. And they are reflected from unconscious human biases. But if it's there and we know it's there, then maybe that means we can mitigate, right? If we proactively know that it's there, then maybe we can get ahead of it and actually come up with solutions and strategies, which we will talk about, where you can mitigate it. Maybe we can actually improve fairness since we already know that it may potentially be there. And we can use data-driven approaches that actually address what actually it's naturally human to be biased. I think it would be hard pressed to find someone who has no biases whatsoever, but we could use data-driven approaches to address that. Okay, so next slide. So we talked about positive and negative. So let's talk about the negative. Unfortunately, if we don't first recognize that bias comes through in our AI platforms, we can actually make it worse, right? We already know that there are disparities, there's inequalities, there's inequities, and different types on different levels. If we don't recognize it and try to have solutions for it, and all of you on the phone, you can play a role. You may not have designed the platform, but you're a user. And we are going to talk about in the next couple of slides how you as the user can play a role in mitigating discrimination. And again, I think a couple of times I heard the word unfair treatment, unfair. And so that's a potential negative impact. And when negative biases are demonstrated through the platforms, and then you turn around and maybe perpetuate it because we don't recognize the bias responses that we're getting out of the AI platforms, and then you use that information without recognizing it, and then you perpetuate that and put that out to the public, that could damage trust in your institution or trust in you personally. So that damages public confidence. That again, this is the reason why it's so important for us to have this conversation and for you to see that you have a role then in recognizing and mitigating bias. So next slide. And just very quickly, there are different sources of bias. So whether it's on the left upper hand side, when we talk about bias data, so I'm sure Chris probably has already shared with you that with these platforms, they are trained. So they have been trained by developers, and there are huge data sets that go into training these platforms. Well, they could be prejudiced data sets. Most likely. The larger the size, then the greater the probability that you have bias in the data sets. When you go over to your right, flawed logarithms, design choices that just make any bias patterns worse. Homogeneous teams, the teams that are involved with creating these platforms, these design teams, oftentimes they look the same, right? And maybe there's not the gender diversity. So there might be a more masculine bias, a tendency towards the responses that come out of the platform. Or maybe the group is of a certain or a higher socioeconomic status. Then that would influence outcomes that come out of the system, and the platform might show responses that are inclusive of a lower economic status. And then just unconscious prejudices. Okay, and we've talked about that. Humans are just biased. You're gonna have, as long as you're human, you're gonna have some bias in you. So next slide. So there are some strategies, and we'll go through these, but I'm really going to spend more time on the next slide, but we'll go through these quickly because I really want to focus on your self-agency and what you can do. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed that the developers, the people behind the curtain that you never see in the developers, they are the ones who are doing this, and there's nothing I can do about it. No, there's something you can do about it. So on the next, I think it's the next slide, we'll spend more time there. But just quickly, strategies to mitigate bias is to have diverse teams in AI development. Again, that may not be you. Regular audits where you can test the system for bias. And I'm actually going to show you, Chris, I'm going to show them one of my examples at one point, but fairness in your algorithms and transparency. Make AI decisions explainable and reviewable. I want to share with you that I actually have a client, and then for that client, we are doing some organizational effectiveness type work and really looking at, is their organization, the way they are designed and structured, are they operating with the greatest effectiveness and efficiency? So we did a survey, we collected a lot of data from all their departments. However, I have someone doing that for me. However, I told the analyst we must communicate to our client that our intent is to use this AI data, but we are promising them that we will maintain security, that we'll do a check for bias, that we will anonymize the data, and we are asking them, do we have your permission to do that? That is transparency. They need to know how decisions will be made, and we need to give them our assurance and commitment that what we give them through the analysis using AI, that we have done everything we could and put things in place to minimize that bias. So that's just an example of mitigating bias and transparency.
Joy?
President Olu has something he wants to say. He's got his hand raised.
Yes.
There was a what you call unconscious prejudice that went viral several weeks ago. It was the president of the United States. Our president of Liberia was meeting with the president of the United States, and after our president talked, the president of the United States said, "You speak beautiful English."
I know. I'm sorry. I saw it too. I saw it too.
How embarrassing.
Yeah, it was very embarrassing.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring that up so people can be biased by being unconscious and being prejudiced.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought that example. As you can tell, Chris and I saw it at Practical Viral. And I want to share with you, here's another potential bias that some people in the world might assume that our president's bias represents a United States bias. And as you can tell from my reaction and Chris's reaction, we were terribly, terribly embarrassed by that. So, yes, that is a good example. And what was bad about that, he went on and on. I don't think he recognized that what he said was totally inappropriate because he kept talking, he kept going on and would not stop. I don't think he ever got the sense that, ooh, I said something that was inappropriate. But please recognize that we are all different here in the States, and his bias and lack of recognition of what he did is not representative. But thank you for bringing that example to our attention, because obviously it's an example that's very relevant for you.
Yeah, that's just an example of somebody that didn't prepare, right? I mean, he just assumed you're from another country, you don't speak English. And yeah, that was
Yeah, I don't know if preparation would have helped that individual.
moving on and not being
Yeah,
political.
moving on. Moving on. But thank you for bringing that that example to our attention, because again, that's an example that is very relevant, very relevant. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. And we won't spend much time here, but we do, and you have the slides, but this way you can see that there are tools that can help address some of these issues around bias, but even plagiarism. And we will get into copyright a little bit later in the second portion of our time together. So there are some tools out there. So please make note of that in your materials. But here's what I want to emphasize though, your knowledge of prompting and being able to prompt in a way to ask the system, ask your platform for, you can ask it in your response to me, identify the ways that you may have been gender, race, or ethnicity, or language or culture. You could have been biased in your response. And it will tell you without all these tools, because I know you probably need to be conscious of your budget. And a lot of these tools, they cost per month. And I even had someone in my previous class said, Joy, it's kind of adding up. I don't have a budget for all these different tools. So if you don't have a budget, then your prompting is going to be key to try to catch some of these things that these platforms would normally catch. So next slide. Any questions? I want to make sure I'm not missing a hand up. We okay so far?
Which of these programs are cheaper?
Which programs are cheaper? Do you want to go back, Chris? Now, I will share with you.
Affordable, let me see.
Affordable. I will share with you the ones I'm familiar with, and then Chris can share if he's used any of them. I have used Grammarly, and I don't remember exactly off the top of my head that might be like $20 a month. I like Grammarly because it's not only, it helps with identifying plagiarism, but also if you keep it on at all times, it helps identify grammar errors. So it actually helps with your writing. That's why I really like that one. So I'm most familiar with that one. And again, I don't know what your budget is, about $20, but again, $20. I may not be exact on that. Chris, do you have any experience with any of the others?
I believe it's been a while since I wrote this slide, but I believe What If Tool and Copyscape have free versions that you can use that can help you. They've got limited features, but for what you're trying to do, it can help.
Yeah,
Right?
to Chris's point, yeah, I didn't think of that. With a lot of them, you'll want to look for the free version because it just seems like almost everything I use has a free version, even though it's limited. Yes. Abraham?
I'm familiar with Turnitin, but the issue with Turnitin is that Turnitin is sold to institutions, not to individuals. So like an academic institution can buy or can have a share in Turnitin and now have various accounts for students that can help track plagiarism in students' work, especially when it comes to research.
Mm. Okay. So Turnitin is sold to institutions, and I know with Grammarly, individuals can get that. Okay. Okay. So, and please remember as we go to the next slide, if you prefer to put your comments in the chat, you can do that publicly, and then you can send a private chat to Chris, and he will read your comment without saying your name, if that's what you prefer. Okay, so user-led ethical AI practices. Again, we don't control the platform developers, but you can control how you prompt. So being very critical about the outputs, and then having diverse points of view and having different individuals involved in how you're using AI. And I will share with you, I talked to another person of our team yesterday, and she said for her students, she had them put in a prompt and she had different students use different AI platforms to see the difference and maybe bias between the different AI platforms. So they all use the same prompt, but then they all used 5 different language model platforms to see if there was some bias across. And then they actually compared. And I think that's a really good exercise to see not only bias, but just the differences in what your platforms, how they respond. If you see problems, flag them, or you can re-educate the system. I had one friend, and this was early this year, and she actually told me, and I don't remember the prompt, but she told the platform, no, you that is a biased response. And then she explained to the platform why. Now, what that does, and again, I don't know if you've already covered this, if you have not changed your settings for your platform and you have allowed the platform to pull your information, so to pull the back and forth into the model. So it says something like, do you allow the model to pull your information to improve the experience for others? If that is on, that means as you are teaching the platform and you're saying, no, there's a different perspective, and you are sharing with the platform your chain of thought, then that gets pulled up and that can be used to teach the model and improve the experience for others. So just really keep that in mind. And also, there may be a thumbs down, thumbs up, or thumbs down, and you do the thumbs down on a bias response, and that way you're teaching. Okay. So transparency. So transparency and advocacy, and then do we have a comment? Okay, no. So, Chris, just really quick, I am going to share then, because I want them. Do you mind if I share?
Of course not.
Okay.
Should be able to.
Yeah, I sent the request. Because I'm going to show them how the system showed that Joy Mason was biased. Okay, because I'm human, right? And so I don't want you to read it verbatim. That's not my point. So please don't try to read it verbatim. I'm going to point out to you what I want you to see. I asked, here's my prompt. Where I said, let me move you out of the way. Create a document describing the importance of leadership. And I do the pound to make sure that my instructions are separated and it doesn't get confused. Context, this document will be used in my leadership workshop. Pound. Audience, university students, 1 page with a few bullet points. Okay, so please don't get caught up in trying to read it. That's not my point. So it gave me 6 points around leadership. But here's what I want to show you. So it gave me an output. But then I turned around and said, create a list of ways this 1-page document might be perceived as biased. Examples, and Chris probably told you in a previous module, give it examples. That really helps with the accuracy of what you get back. I said examples: gender, race, age, region, income, culture. I had no idea that what I was trying to do could be perceived as bias in different ways. And I just want to point out a few. So the response that ChatGPT, that's what I'm using, gave me, I thought it was great. I thought this is awesome. I can take this, copy and paste it, make a few edits and run with it. But here's what it said. It said, I might have used he. And then if I say he, then women might be left out. It said, and what it gave me, I didn't include diverse voices, and my language may have been centered on a majority culture. And here, look, I'm a minority in this country, and here I wrote something with collaboration with AI that could be excluding people who look like me. This is interesting with age, written for university students, but could unintentionally suggest that real leadership starts in young adulthood. And then what I wrote in collaboration with AI, I could have been leaving out the elders. Doesn't acknowledge the wisdom and leadership contributions of elders. And this is the last one I'll share because I thought this was really fascinating. When I asked it, do you have regional bias? It assumes a Western, especially US concept of leadership. So I'm Western, I'm US bias. The way I conceive leadership could be very different than how maybe Liberia defines leadership, which might be more community based. And see, in collaboration, and I'm done, Chris, we can go back to slides. Okay. So in collaboration with AI, I thought I did a great prompt, the first one. It gave me a result. I thought it was fantastic. I was going to run with it. But then when I can control my prompt and put in a prompt and say, hey, AI check for bias. And then I could have been very biased and I had no intention to be exclusionary. Does anybody have any thoughts regarding that example? I thought that example might help.
That was a great example.
Yeah. Okay. Tashina, thumbs up. Okay. Well, if any, we're going to thank you, Tracy. So we'll move on to the next slide, but please, I just want to reiterate, you're free to take off your mic at any time or raise your hand. We'll try to, between Chris and I, we'll try to make sure that we see your hand.
Hey,
Or
Joy, I have a quick question.
yes.
Did you prompt the AI to look through your document to see how it can come across as being biased because you were already aware of the possibilities of being biased? Because I would have never done that, and I don't think I've ever done that with any of my documents or things that I produce. But it's just because of your awareness that you asked that question. And as we go forward in our prompting and our creation of materials, how do we keep from, like you said earlier, we all are going to have biases in some form or fashion based on our experiences. How do we also keep from being so super conscious about having biases in what we're producing?
Yeah. So good question, Emil. Actually, Emil, and again, being fully transparent, that second prompt where I asked it, make a list of where this could have been biased by age, whatever, I had not done that before either. So the reason why I did it was because as I was preparing for this class, it helps to have examples so you can see but beyond the abstract concepts. So I did it this morning, not because I was aware. And Emil, I was surprised. If you had asked me, Joy, are you biased? It's like, well, as a Black female, and my experience here in the States, I try to be very conscious of bias because I experience it as a Black female. And so I would not have thought all of the things that, all the list that came out, I wouldn't have thought it would say, well, Joy, these are you in collaboration with the AI platform could have been biased in these 10 ways. And I was a little, embarrassed by it. I'm more biased than I thought. But again, I have control now in collaboration with AI to be more consistent with prompts where I'm asking for that. And that gives me the opportunity. And in fact, Emil, I didn't show everybody everything. I turned around. No, here's what AI asked me. It said, do you now want to update your document to mitigate some of these biases? And all I said was yes, because remember, you don't have to be lengthy. You just say yes. You don't need, like 3 sentences. Yes. And it turned around and redid the document. And I was amazed by how different it sounded, and it was more inclusive. I could see it. Yeah. But I didn't realize my biases prior to doing it. I was doing it for this class and I actually learned something about myself.
Another question, sorry. So, I mean, what you shared is has me thinking. So, as Africans, right, there's a global bias in some cases about Liberians, Nigerians as a whole. How do we make sure that our as we use AI, our outputs are not living up to those biases that already exist about African students or professionals or
Mhm.
just the work that has been done? How do we do we prompt the AI to review our documents, or just to understand that the outputs that we're creating don't live up to the biases that are already out there about young Africans or African students? So if the students are applying for a master's or a PhD program, because I know the university has some students that leave and go study overseas. As they apply for those programs, how do they make sure that they're aware of those things and then they're not also living up to those biases?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's really packed, Emil. Well, first of all, there has to be the awareness, right? So even for me to write that prompt, I needed to have the awareness that there was the possibility for bias. And I think that's part of the problem, is that without the awareness, people don't even have it within the consciousness to mitigate it or to have solutions for it. So it's got to be the awareness. But and then I'm open to, and we have some other people on our team, Jashina and Tracy, who might be able to chime in. I don't want to answer all the questions, but I think it's this type of training, where whether it's an AI platform or someone who doesn't have an AI platform, they may be using the internet. They may be using just the internet because they're not AI savvy to help them with their responses or an application. It's the same kind of issues with the internet. And even if you weren't using an AI platform or the internet and you were just using old school, just your mind, to write a response or fill out an application, I think we need the training and education, the awareness first, and then the training and education has to come from people to expose them to bias, and then how do we mitigate? And I do want to say, in the US, with our cultural and political landscape currently, that is a challenge. So again, we have self-agency to be more creative and be more thoughtful about how we go about doing this, around, the knowledge around ethics and bias, because it must be done. I mean, we can't stop it just because of the cultural and political landscape. We have to continue the work, but we've got to be more creative in doing it. So I do want to recognize we have a couple on our team, Tracy and Jashina. I just want to give you an opportunity if you had anything to add, because there was a lot in that question that Emil had.
Joy, first of all, I just want to say you're just doing an awesome job. So just kudos to that, because I'm definitely learning over here. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Got the boys here. But I agree. I think it begins with that awareness. Like Emil was posing great questions, and I think that that's exactly what it takes when we're talking about prompt engineering, is that you're really taking the time to ask yourself the questions. What type of output do you really want? So all those things that Emil was laying out, I'm hearing like those are questions that you're going to feed. That's information that you're going to feed into your AI as you're creating your post, as you're trying to create a training program or creating promotional pieces. You're going to think that through, and then you're going to create a document, right? And you're going to fill those areas down to make sure that what you're trying to create, you actually write it down so that you can give it to the AI, so that the AI will be able to take all of that information and then be able to translate it into something else. But it begins with awareness. I mean, honestly, I think that question was a beautiful question to ask AI, because now I'm curious.
Yeah.
So I think that was, to answer that question, it starts with awareness, but it also starts with creating your own document. When we talk about, context engineering, is taking prompt engineering to the next level. It's about taking time and really creating a document that addresses all those questions that you have, and that
Yeah.
you're giving it to the AI.
Okay. Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate your input. This is the discussion that we need to have. And before we go to the next slide, I will share with you that I was part of, and Emil is familiar with this, the BEI, was it Black Equity Indianapolis, but it's a program through, I may have my acronym a little off, but it's a program through the Indianapolis Chamber 2 nights ago, and it's focused on procurement. And someone got up and they did a 15-minute slide deck. I think they represented the Indiana Black Chamber, and they did a presentation on AI. It was fine. It was fine. However, no discussion of ethics and bias. And I think that's what I will share with you. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us different. We have to have this discussion for responsible use. And if we don't have this discussion, we will undoubtedly perpetuate the bias unconsciously. Yeah. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so just to wrap up, and as we think about responsible use of AI in the future, the ethical commitment. And I know when we had the dialogue earlier, and we talked about the word fairness came up a couple of times, that has to be a priority. And it needs to be more than what I saw a couple of nights ago, which the person's presentation was fine, but that this ethics and responsible use and fairness, I believe, and Chris mentioned, is just as important as being a great prompt engineer, because the way that you can uncover and mitigate the fairness is through your prompt engineering, as you saw with mine, with the second prompt. Cross-discipline collaboration. You're going to have the technical expertise, and maybe the person that I heard speak 2 days ago, he was more on the technical side. I would suggest, and I am going to make a phone call, that he collaborate with someone who really has that ethical focus. Maybe that is not his area of expertise, but I think someone speaking with an audience focused on AI, I've got to have that partnership with someone who talks about what we're talking about today. And again, I will credit Emil and Chris that I see this part of the training as being a unique value proposition that InnoPower offers, is this ethical and bias focus and training. Continuous improvement. So with me being a continuous improvement professional, that's what I'm certified, one of my certifications, there needs to be someone who has the responsibility. If someone doesn't own it, no one will own it. Someone who has the responsibility to be mindful around how AI and how your institution is using it continuously needs to be improved, continuously need to address bias, just improve over time for the sake of the whole, not just the individual, the whole, and how the university uses it. So those are just some thoughts regarding responsible, ethical use of AI in the future. Okay, next slide.
Oh, sorry. I was writing myself a note that I need to go through all my materials based on based on your conversation today. Makes me, even though I wrote all this, I now want to go back and look at everything I've written for you all to say, is there bias in it?
Yes, absolutely.
I didn't
And
think
Chris, I'm telling you, what I pulled out, it surprised me. Because I mean, you're sitting in your own body. You only know what you know.
Yeah.
So, but again, just as we are collaborators with the platforms, we can collaborate with the platform to illuminate then what we may not recognize in ourselves. And AI won't illuminate it unless we ask it in our prompt engineering to illuminate it, and it will in surprising ways.
We have a quick comment from Nima, a question actually. Who should be blamed if an AI system makes a bad or unfair decision?
Um, Nima, I have a thought around this because over the past week, I have actually heard a couple people complain about the platform and some of the information they're getting. And I try to, in a nice way, ask them about their prompting. Because I will share with you, before the training that I got from Chris and InnoPower, I was getting some responses back from ChatGPT as my preferred platform, and I was getting angry with with the platform for its answers. I was like, oh, what is wrong with you? And then my sister said, Joy, talk nicely to it. So that was kind of funny. Um, but what I discovered now through the training, my prompting was the problem. And I didn't realize how I was prompting and I was compounding, I was doing things. And so I would say a third of the stuff that it was giving me was just off, but it was me not having the prompting engineering skills. And so it was giving me just really convoluted information. But I will share with you if something comes through and it looks like it's really inappropriate and bad stuff. And again, we are transparent. So Chris, Emil, and our team were very transparent. So what I mean by that, Meta has been in the news and they have been doing some things that are potentially will be under investigation. And so, and again, it's in the news, multiple sources. I don't know what's true or not true. So under investigation, if you see something terribly inappropriate, then you should report that.
We
But
haven't. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. Mm-mm.
We have another question. It says, Hey, Chris and Joy, I wrote a research paper without AI, but on submission, I was informed that Turnitin had flagged that my work was 24% AI generated. I was asked to redo to an acceptable level of 20%. Can that be categorized as bias on the part of the AI software? How should such be handled? It really stressed me out. It really stressed me out, though I had to redo and the paper was published.
Chris,
So,
you want to take a stab at that?
yeah, I can take a stab at it. It again, we're pattern matchers and it looks for it. It looks for patterns and it looks based on how people write. So when it goes through, evidently you used enough words. This is from Benson, by the way. Evidently you used enough words and enough phrases that AI uses that it caught it. I always try to, if I've got something that I'm publishing to the outside world, I always say I used AI in this to help, to help create this or to help whatever. Um, you know, I I don't think it's bias per se as much as it might be linguistic, right? Looking at the linguistic side of what you're doing, maybe you're Benson, maybe you're that person that, writes very, very good English and matches pretty close to the AI. I don't think there's anything I don't think it's bias. And there's really not much you can probably do other than um, go in and redo the paper, would be my suggestion. You could use AI to redo the paper. This is where I get in trouble. But you could use your AI to do it by saying, please humanize this output. And it will go through and change it a little bit to make those spots that are problematic by its terms. But there's really nothing else that I know of you could do about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Chris, one more thing before we go to Francis's question. I want to go back to Nima on the AI system makes a bad or unfair decision. Chris, I do recall in your training, you talked about, I thought there were some cases where um, AI made a bad decision. And I don't know why I thought it was the courts. Maybe it reached the courts and the courts said you cannot blame AI for something like a bad
Right.
decision. I mean, the
That's why,
people have to own it.
yeah, that's why we talk a lot about human-centered AI, right? You use AI as a tool to come alongside you, to help you, but it's not in front of you, right? So if AI makes you're saying a bad decision, I would say that's probably an agent. When you consider that when we're writing and it comes back with false information, if you take that and you don't validate that information, you don't go through and ask it to cite its sources and then validate that those are real, then it's on you because you're the one who has got it's your work product. Just like any other tool that you might use, you're responsible ultimately for the output because you chose to use those. So I don't think we blame the AI or the machine or the company. I think it comes back to you and what you're going to do. But again, you want to validate those. You want to validate if you're asking it to cite cases. You want to click on those links and make sure that they're real if it gives you a link. If it's citing case law, you want to go back and validate that it's actually a case. There's been several cases here in the US where attorneys have gone in and have had paralegals, their assistants, go in and write up briefs for the court. And those attorneys went ahead, read very well, right? Submitted it to the court, but they didn't go and check the citations of where they were citing case law. And one attorney in Florida just about got disbarred because he did that, because he sent it and he didn't check it. So you want to make sure that, again, ultimately, it's your work product. So you need to make sure that it's not that what it's saying is accurate, and that if it's citing sources, those sources are real.
Mhm.
Does that help,
Yeah.
Joy?
Yes, thank you, Chris. Then we have a question from Francis. Is it possible to eliminate bias in AI? After all, from developers to users, we are all human. Yeah, we talked about that. It's like we're all human, so there's going to be bias, and we have our respective viewpoints. Please help. My thought is what we're talking about today can mitigate it and reduce it. I don't know if it can totally eliminate it, but at least you can drive it way, way down if you provided a prompt that really, just like I did with my prompt, I included a lot in there. I'm like, give me a list of ways. And I said, race, ethnicity, gender, culture. I think I added something else. And right, I could have, oh, I said income. So at least with those, that might be the biggest ones. I put in the prompt and it identified. But is that going to give me a list that is 100% no? But again, when it asked me, so do you want me to update the document based on the ways that I identified and mitigate that? And I said yes. At least I would hope that I reduced the biases that were there by, and again, I'm just making up a number, by 70 or 80%, but I'm sure if you took then my updated document and then you created a prompt where you wanted to check for other things, is this bias against, let's say, I know with some of my friends, they come from a specific tribe, right? So I don't know if it's the Igbo, I don't know all the tribes, but you might ask, is this bias against, the Igbo? And then it might come out and then come out with a set of 7 things that I wouldn't have thought of. And so then you would be knocking down the bias even more. But then someone else from Thailand may have another list. So I just don't think it's possible to eliminate, but I think we can do our best. We can do our best and reduce it significantly. So that's what this is about. I hope I said the Igbo. I hope I said that correctly. So please give me grace if I did not.
So Titus asked the question, is
Okay.
managing bias in AI more about technical solutions or ethical responsibility?
You want to try that one?
Yeah, so I'm a technology guy. I've been in technology for a long time. I love technology. Even though I'm 64 years old, I have a virtual reality headset and I play on the computer all the time. And as you can tell, I'm a big advocate for AI. In my opinion, it's always ethical responsibility, right? Yes, they have a responsibility as a system provider or an app provider or a developer. You have a responsibility for it. But as a individual using AI, you are responsible. And it is your responsibility to make sure that you're being ethical in how you use it. Emil asked a good question. I don't know the answer to. Are there biases amongst tribes in Liberia? This is one where everybody else gets to answer. Francis.
Absolutely, yes. A big YES. Tribalism is huge in Liberia, where people employ their relatives, where they prioritize their home, where they give people jobs that they are not qualified to do, where they give scholarship to people who are not capable of performing. So you can name it's endless in Liberia.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking that, Emil.
And then Francis, though. Francis, you had your hand up. Okay. Did we lose Francis? Okay.
Ready to go to the next slide?
Yes. Okay, so now we will, now that we have that background and context and really good discussion, let's talk about some real world examples. And so we will actually, this is an introductory slide to the three examples that we will talk about when it comes to bias and ethics. One is related to Amazon's recruiting tool, and that has to do with a bias that around gender, facial recognition failures. This one very interesting, and I've heard a lot about in terms of skin color. And then we will talk about a healthcare algorithm bias. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, so let's start with the facial recognition disparities. And just real quick, a sidebar with Chris. We had talked about the breakout, and so what we'll describe the three and then allow a breakout for them to discuss.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me find out where that's at in the slide. Go ahead. You're good. I can do that.
Okay, so I'll just, okay. So let's talk about the facial recognition disparities. There's a show that I watch, a law show on TV called Law and Order. And so I watched that a lot. And they actually had a show where they had a man who was on trial. He had dark skin color. And with his defense attorney, the defense attorney pointed out this issue right here, because I guess he was caught in a face recognition system, and they used that to indict him. But then the defense attorney pointed out these statistics where with this facial recognition systems out there, the error rate is up to 34.7% for darker skinned women versus 0.8% for lighter skinned men. Now, since this is a university setting and you're doing research, you might be familiar with statistically significant differences. There is a statistically significant difference between 34.7 and 0.8. So when you have statistically significant differences, that shows you this difference is not by chance. It's not random. There is a specific root cause for the difference. And so, so this is something that I don't know if this has actually been fully addressed because I've heard about it even recently. Also, there's multiple with real world consequences. Oh, well, yeah, right there. Wrongful arrest based on facial recognition. That's what we were talking about. And then with regards to the corporate response, IBM, Microsoft, Amazon temporarily halted their facial recognition sales to police, and companies pledged to address the unfairness. And again, you've got to be aware of it first and then recognize it in order to mitigate it, right? You're not going to come up with solutions if you don't first recognize that it's actually happening. So the next one.
You want to go to the next slide?
Yes, I think so. I think so. I think we
Sorry.
set it up where we talk about it and then we'll have a discussion on
Yep.
or
Right.
breakdown on it. Okay. So that's one example that I'm very familiar with. And again, just remember, and I think it's relevant in the university setting, when we talk about numbers and you see statistically significant differences, that means there is a root cause and there is a reason, and it's not by random chance. Healthcare diagnosis disparities. So with Optum algorithm, so this was used by hospitals to identify high-risk patients who need additional care. But what this study actually found out is that the algorithm that was created, somehow the way it was written, they actually prioritize white patients over Black patients. Okay, and then we'll talk about there's actually some numbers because again, with you being in a research setting, when you hear there's an increase, decrease, or more or less, it's very helpful to actually see the number to see how significant the difference is. But again, prioritize white patients over Black patients. And then the root cause they found out was that with the algorithm, they used the healthcare spending as a proxy or a substitute for the health needs, which perpetuated systemic inequalities. So, as you would imagine, maybe the Black population doesn't have the resources or the funds to be spending more on healthcare. And so, using spending when you have different groups, whether it's racial or maybe even by income or ethnicity, are not spending the same amount or the same amount is not being spent on them. So then if the algorithm turns around and uses that, the algorithm is just exacerbating a disparity or disproportionality that is already there. So if we go to that last sentence, Black patients historically access, not the next slide. I just want to read that number from the previous slide because the numbers matter. Yeah, where it says Black patients historically access less health care due to socioeconomic factors and discrimination, leading the algorithm to underestimate their needs by 27.9%. That is significant. Now, again, if it said 1.5%, maybe that is just very normal variation, but this is 27.9%. That's not random, that's significant. Okay, next slide. And then we're going to go into an exercise after this one. So, and then Amazon had a bias hiring tool, and they were using AI. And you want to assume that they had good intentions and they were trying to be efficient by using AI. And maybe they decided they had so many applicants, like where I used to work. So, we got like, I don't know, it was like 5,000 applicants because we were a global company. So we were getting like 5,000 applicants per month, if you can believe it. People cannot go through those many resumes. And so it's normal that you would have some type of system that makes sense, more efficient to rate your job candidates. That sounds fine. But then the team discovers the tool penalizes resumes that contain the word women. And again, you would hope to think that that was not the intention, but maybe it was like my leadership document where I had no intention to disrespect the wisdom of the elders. That was not my intention, but somehow in collaboration with AI, the way it was written, it looked like I valued the wisdom of younger people more. So I would hope it's the same way here where they didn't intend to do that. And then in 2016, they attempt to fix the bias problems, but it didn't work. And then 2018, they just said forget it. So look at that, from 2014, they just said forget it. And so this just shows you how AI can amplify existing workplace inequalities when trained on historical data. And again, even though we're not AI, maybe tool platform developers, with your prompts, though, you can extract these type of biases out proactively before you present your output to the public. So go to the next slide. So hopefully with these three real world examples, you can go to the next slide. I covered.
I was just going to add one thing on this.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
The root cause on this was the fact that they used their existing data, right? And that's where, so they used the resumes and then they used who they hired, and that ended up being the root cause. Was they were trying to achieve something and using their current data instead of saying, okay, now let's go and adjust the data and adjust the algorithm to make sure that it works. And the other thing I would add really quickly is that as a IT professional for a number of years, they obviously didn't, when they were building this tool, they obviously didn't consider all their use cases, right? They didn't break it down enough to say, okay, let's test it with women. Let's test it with men. Let's test it with college graduates. Let's test it for ethnicity, right? For different ethnicity. Let's test it for different backgrounds, right? They may have done that thinking their existing data was good, and in reality, their data was garbage. So
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you, Chris. And Chris, I do want to backtrack. You can stay right there, but I want to your point, I want to address something that Emil put in the chat about this Grok chatbot, and it was criticized for generating racist and anti-Semitic content. The majority of the time that we have been talking in the slides, it assumes that the bias is unintentional. But again, we need to be very transparent and clear. You're always going to have bad actors and bad people out there that are doing some things intentionally. But our hope is that out of all, out of all the platforms, out of all the possibilities, out of all the data sets, that is a small percent of the activity and the outputs and the platforms that's happening out there. But I do want to recognize, if you're getting racist and anti-Semitic, it just makes you wonder if there was a bad actor behind the scenes who put that in there intentionally. I don't think things like that happen by chance. Okay. So we've done a lot of talking, so we're going to give you an opportunity to really interact with each other. So we provide, because we believe with your learning, the more engagement and discussion that you can have, that'll really help you walk away with more learning. So we're going to give you an opportunity to break out in groups. And there were the examples that we just provided. That was the Amazon, the healthcare. I forget the third one. What was it, Chris? Amazon healthcare. Oh, and the face recognition.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And so, Chris, I think we're going to break them out then into those three groups. If you could just elaborate on how we're going to do that so they know which example they have. Room number is assigned to a specific example.
So I'm going to create four rooms, and we'll let them just go and talk. They can pick their example.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll get a spread of all three, but if we don't, that's okay too. I'm more interested in their conversation than making sure all the examples are covered.
Okay.
So you ready to go?
How much time are you giving them?
We're going to give them 10 minutes to have this conversation. So they'll have to be fast.
Okay, monitor your time, but when we close the room, I believe the system will give you the clock and say you've got 1 minute left.
That's actually me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have to tell them it's 1 minute and then
Okay.
Anyway, here we go.
Oh, you're putting me in a room too. Okay, that'll
You
be
don't
fun.
have to go. Just don't go.
I'm not gonna. Huh?
Just don't go. I need to talk to you anyway.
Okay. So I'll just cross that out.
Let's step away for just a second.
Okay.
I'm back. We'll stop the record, pause the record.
I'm really interested in hearing how that discussion went.
Hello.
Francis has her, yeah, Francis has a hands up.
Okay, thank you, Francis. And then it'll be Abraham after Francis. Francis, you can go ahead. Thank you, Tracy.
Okay, so we were looking at question 1. What technical and social approaches might reduce bias in facial recognition systems?
Mm-hmm.
So looking at the real world examples and as per our discussion, we think that teamwork is essential in reducing biases in facial recognition system. By
Okay.
that we mean looking at the world from a global perspective. I leave from Africa and go to Europe, or someone leaves from there and comes here. When we all interact, if we do apply, apparently the system that is there, the facial recognition system was built by someone who never had the experience of coming to Africa. So he will quote or instruct the AI based on what he has seen from his vantage point.
Mm-hmm.
So what we think is that if you are writing such programs, you need an HR professional. You need someone who is versed in Asian, African, Hispanic, or Latino studies. You need, if it is on welfare, you need someone who is an expert. If it is healthcare, you need someone who is an expert. So you build a team. If it is security, if it is, so you have a whole team with you. And while you are the tech person, you have advice and input from those various groups that will mitigate such problems. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Francis. That was excellent. So what I captured was really that teamwork and having the different perspectives, a global perspective. And apparently the developing team didn't have the experience they needed to mitigate that bias. And we need the team of the right experts could help address what happened there. Thank you, Francis. And then I saw Abraham's hand. Abraham?
Yes, so my group will look at biases within the accessing healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
And the real life situation we had was from Africa, from within Africa perspective. Some members of the group believe that irrespective of your status within society, you should be able to access healthcare because diseases are diseases. It doesn't matter who contracts a particular disease. But I was of the view that we are all not equal. We do not pay equal taxes. So based on the level of taxes you pay, you should be able to access healthcare based on the tax you pay. Because a loss of a life that pay taxes that cover 200 persons would not have the same magnitude as somebody who do not pay tax, who pay indirect tax. Then we narrowed the conversation down to an experience that I had at University of Ghana. University of Ghana had 3 different health facilities, and students are tied to these health facilities based on the school fees you pay. So for PhD students, they are assigned to the University of Ghana Medical Center that deals with research, and doctors are on call. You can access a doctor whatever the time of the day. But for undergraduate students, they are assigned to the University of Ghana Clinic because the school fees they pay cannot cover the services that are being provided at the medical center. So if you want to go to the medical center, it means you have to pay. But I, as a PhD candidate, do not have to pay because my school fees covers it. So yes, even though everybody needs to access healthcare, we cannot access healthcare at the same level because we are all not paying the same amount of money, or our contribution to society isn't the same.
Abraham, that one is interesting. And I would love to be part of a group that discusses that in more detail because you would think theoretically, everyone should have access and maybe equitable access. But then you're pointing out that not everybody is contributing the same in taxes. So whether it's tuition or it's the taxes that contribute to how the medical care or health care is paid for. So if you didn't pay, do you deserve or have you earned, deserve, I'm not sure what the right word is, the same healthcare access? And so I'm not going to weigh in on that one, but there's complexity to that one and quite fascinating that sure warrants additional discussion. Excellent example. Thank you, Abraham. Well, we do not have enough time to actually ask for comments from all of the groups, but hopefully in the discussion, you can see that they're not black and white answers in mitigating bias. It may not be all that simple, right? Especially with this last example where there are definitely some complexities to it. But again, as we talk about your future use of regarding your future use of AI platforms, it's not as simple as just which platform am I going to use, and am I going to which prompt engineering framework am I going to use? We are going to see in the future these types of conversations, like what Francis and what Abraham brought up, will be integrated in how we use the AI platforms. So please continue. Don't let the discussion stop today. We anticipate you will continue these types of discussions. So that brings us to closure for the topic of ethics and okay, we got a little bit more. We're almost to closure here. Just a few more examples we wanted to bring to your attention. And that is, there was some research that was done by UCLA, so a local university here, and algorithms of oppression, which is very interesting. Because again, a lot of people may not believe that with the algorithms and platforms, there's bias, the isms, different types of isms and oppression that come through in systems. But they revealed that with the Google search results, they reinforce harmful stereotypes. And a good example is the over-sexualizing of images of Black women. And I will share with you personally, I see that on the Amazon platform. And I have not filed a complaint yet, but I see that frequently on the Amazon platform and find it very offensive. But it's interesting that someone did a research paper and saw that coming through in Google searches. So really, again, and we have already, you had the opportunity to talk about several examples, so we won't use this opportunity to make this a discussion, so we allow plenty of time for the copyright and trademark. But with this example, there's impact, whether it's reinforcing existing power structures or where it's, reinforcing biases. And I want to give you an example. This is a personal example, and this occurred during the pandemic here in the US. One day, and this pertains to this topic in particular, I walked into the Kroger grocery store. And when you walk into the grocery store and go slightly right and then go straight, there is the wine and alcohol. And facing me was a bottle of wine with a voluptuous Black woman, a big afro, almost naked, sitting on top of a car. And that was on the label on a bottle of wine. And I was offended. So here is and I did escalate it. And I asked all my friends to complain to all of those grocery stores around the city. And eventually that bottle, I don't know where it went. I'm sure they didn't remove it, but they put it in a place where I couldn't find it anywhere. Maybe they did remove it. So, but here's my point by sharing that example. There are people out there, whether it's intentional or unintentional, who have these biases. And so, whether it's a grocery store, a winemaker, the label maker, or an AI platform developer, or the search engine developer, you're going to find it in any environment, context, because people are human and they grew up with a certain background where you're going to naturally have biases, right? And so that impacts, and then you mentioned in Liberia too, tribe, language, family versus non-family, power, student, non-student. And that is going to impact groups in different ways. So ethical solutions, something we want you to think about is, what are the responsibilities that tech companies have to address these algorithmic biases? But I want you also to think about your self-agency. You have prompts. I just showed you mine, where I, without a company, was able to extract the biases that I was demonstrating. Okay, so what can you do? And when you see something egregious, report it, do a thumbs down, press on that thumbs down for the response from AI. Share your chain of thought to reteach it, but if it's egregious, report it. Chris, was there anything that you wanted to add to that?
No, you got it.
Okay. Okay, the next. Okay. So we are transitioning. Chris, do you do any breaks or do we go right?
No, we've only got like 3 minutes or like 8 minutes left.
Oh, in the entire time?
Yeah, see, flies when you're having fun. Time flies when you're having fun, don't
Okay,
it?
so here's what I'm gonna do, and maybe you leave it for homework.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, the copyright and trademarks, and so we're out of time, but Chris is going to leave you with some homework, and I'll just share the reason why we cover this is that you will be receiving a lot of information as you prompt from the platform, and then you will be giving information to the platform. And it's important to now with this platform to be knowledgeable about your intellectual property and what you own and what you don't own. And I'll give you an example. One of my students from last week, she told me she was generating all kinds of images with the platform and she said she's copywriting everything. And I said, whoops, hold on. Here's a question for you. Is that really your intellectual property? And so this is the last with my second cohort. We'll be covering this so she understands, at least here in the US, if you use all the Canva is the platform, all Canva elements, and she didn't change it or manipulate it at all, that may not be something she can copyright. That may not be her intellectual property. So this is something really important as you publish a book, as you try to copyright something, put a trademark on something, and this is evolving. So it's hard to kind of nail down what the rules are with court rulings. But this is a topic that Chris is going to share with you some homework so you can get a better understanding of what we know the rules are the best we can understand today. So, Chris?
So we were going to do this as a breakout session, but like we said, we had too much fun talking about the other stuff, about AI ethics. So what we have done is you should have received a PDF with the slides in it and another PDF with 2 worksheets. And what we'd like for you to do is we'd like for you to complete those worksheets. The first worksheet is really you going through and understanding bias. The second one, what I've done is I've created an AI tool inside of InnoPower.ai that's called the Librarian Copyright and AI Law Expert Tool. I curated the information from the librarian intellectual property office. So in other words, it's pulling from that first. And what I'd like for you to do is go through and work through both those worksheets. You can use the tool as you need to. Like I said, it's the Liberian, what did I say? Liberian Copyright and AI Law Expert Tool. With copyright, we talked about it, and I think this is the best way for you to learn about copyright is to actually go through and using the worksheet, ask the questions. So you can go and do that as your homework. It shouldn't take you too long. They're not that complex. They're not that long. I think they're a page a piece. So if you do that, and then if you could send those to me, I'll put my email address in here.
And Chris, it's clear for them where to go in InnoPower AI to find it.
Yeah, it's at the top.
Okay. Yes, that's right. It is at the top. Okay.
So yeah. So you can email those outputs to me. You can also email to me the other homework assignments. I went through and started reviewing those this morning. I'm going to continue to review those, and then you will be receiving an email from me by probably my time Sunday night. I will start sending out emails telling you where you're at with the homework, and what I have and what I don't have. So it'll be up to you to go through and verify or validate that what you've sent me is right, and that my records are right. And as well, if there's something you haven't sent me, it gives you an opportunity to do it. We are at this is the 4th session of the 6. So you've got basically next week. Hello. You've got next week to finish up, and get those assignments in so that you can have your certificate by Saturday. Are there any questions? Comments?
Please let me encourage all of us to do our assignments. It's very important. I know we are all busy, but it's important that we do the assignments.
Thank you for that.
I want to add, first of all, Joy, what a wonderful 2 hours. I've learned a lot personally. But Dr. Manjay was texting me to say, do I think Joy Mason will be willing to be an adjunct professor at Tubman University to teach ethics in AI as a course? So I told him, I was like, yeah, we have to ask her to see if she wants to do that.
Okay. So we need to continue that discussion because I love the topic. Very interesting. We'll discuss it later. Thank you. Francis, you had a comment? Thank you, Titus. Francis? Uh-oh. I think we lost Francis. Okay, I really, really enjoyed this topic, but I enjoyed the discussion and I enjoyed everyone who participated and even those of you who didn't. So hopefully you were able to take away some really key topics from today. And I don't know if I'll see you again, but maybe we can work something out. We will see. And I wish you the best. So thank you.
Thanks, Joy. You did a great job today. And I am, I learned, I wrote the material and I learned something, right? So, earlier somebody made a comment about having diversity, look at, having a diverse team. And I think that's really important in this is that you continue as you go forward. You don't just live in a vacuum. You don't just, you just don't take things and put them out yourself. You want people to take a look at it, right? And you want to use Joy's tips she gave you today. Use that to try and help make sure that you don't have ethics and bias challenges. Make sure that you're doing things the right way. And I know I'm going to take away a lot of tips. So hopefully you had a good discussion and in your breakout rooms. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Bye.
I think they liked you more than they did me. I think I've been replaced.
No, you haven't, Chris. No,
Yeah,
you have not.
That's the ultimate compliment, though, is when somebody is better than you. That's the ultimate compliment, right? So,
No, what I do like is the engagement. So I don't know what you had in the past sessions, but I thought they were, I
yeah,
thought it was good engagement. So,
yeah, the engagement was good.
okay. Did you, I don't know if you